There's a moment most of us have experienced but rarely admit out loud. A quiet realization that the world isn't as gentle as we once believed it was. It usually doesn't arrive in one dramatic cinematic event. It happens slowly, in small fractures, a betrayal that lingers longer than you expected, a compliment that feels slightly calculated, a smile that carries something unreadable behind it. And in that subtle moment, something inside you shifts. You begin to see people differently. You begin to see yourself differently. Because beneath the surface of kindness, beneath the comforting stories we tell ourselves about morality and goodness, there are truths about human nature that no one really prepares us for. The first brutal truth is this: people care far more about themselves than they will ever care about you. It sounds harsh, almost cynical, but it's woven into the biology of survival. Every human mind is built with itself at the center. Even the most generous acts often orbit around internal rewards, validation, belonging, a sense of moral identity, reputation. When someone listens to you, part of their mind is still aware of how they are being perceived while they listen. When someone helps you, a quiet calculation often takes place beneath the surface. How will this affect me? How will I look? What do I gain from this? And this doesn't make people evil, it makes them human. We are wired to protect our own interests first. That's why promises dissolve under pressure. That's why loyalty bends when survival feels threatened. That's why attention fades the moment something more personally relevant appears. Understanding this doesn't mean you stop loving people. It simply means you stop expecting them to place you at the center of their universe, the way you naturally place yourself at the center of yours. The second truth is that morality is far more flexible than we like to believe. We grow up with rigid definitions of right and wrong, imagining that good people always choose the good path. But history, and even our own private memories, tell a very different story. Under the right circumstances, fear, power, desperation, social pressure, almost anyone can justify almost anything. A lie becomes necessary. A betrayal becomes self-preservation. A cruel comment becomes just being honest. The human mind is remarkably skilled at rewriting narratives to protect its own self-image. We don't see ourselves as villains in our stories. We see ourselves as misunderstood heroes responding to unfair conditions. And that's why ordinary people can participate in extraordinary harm while still sleeping peacefully at night. They adjust their moral compass to align with their actions, rather than adjusting their actions to align with their morals. Then there's the third truth, the one that quietly shapes relationships more than love ever does. People are deeply drawn to status. Not just wealth or fame, but perceived value. Humans are incredibly sensitive to hierarchy, even in subtle forms. Who speaks most confidently in a room? Who receives the most attention? Who seems desired by others? We are instinctively pulled toward those signals. That's why someone who once ignored you may suddenly become interested when others start noticing you. That's why confidence can outweigh kindness when attraction is involved. It's uncomfortable to admit, but many connections are influenced less by genuine compatibility and more by social positioning. We are tribal creatures, and every tribe has its ranks. In friendships, workplaces, even romance, status quietly influences who gets prioritized and who slowly gets forgotten. The fourth truth hides in everyday interactions. People project more than they perceive. When someone accuses you of being selfish, manipulative, insecure, or dramatic, pause for a moment. Often, they're revealing something about themselves. The human psyche struggles to confront its own flaws directly. It's far easier to recognize those flaws in someone else. So we cast our inner conflicts outward. We convince ourselves that the irritation we feel is caused by someone else's behavior rather than our own unresolved wounds. This is why arguments escalate so quickly. Two people aren't just defending facts, they're defending identities. They're protecting fragile self-concepts that feel threatened. And once identity steps onto the battlefield, logic rarely stands a chance. The fifth brutal truth is that most people don't actually want the truth. They want comfort. We say we value honesty, but what we often crave is reassurance. Tell someone a difficult reality about their relationship, their career, or their habits, and notice how quickly defensiveness replaces gratitude. Truth destabilizes. It forces growth. Comfort allows stagnation. And so, in subtle ways, people curate their realities. They follow voices that affirm their existing beliefs. They distance themselves from those who challenge them. Entire communities form around shared illusions because it feels safer to be collectively wrong than individually uncertain. This is why speaking honestly can sometimes isolate you. It's not that people hate the truth, it's that they fear the cost of confronting it. The sixth truth is quieter, more intimate. People are not as self-aware as they believe they are. Ask someone why they made a particular decision, and you'll often hear a polished explanation. Logical, reasonable, convincing. But beneath that explanation are unconscious drives, fear of rejection, desire for validation, avoidance of shame. We construct narratives about our lives that make us feel intentional and rational. Yet much of our behavior is reactive, shaped by experiences we barely remember. Childhood patterns echo into adulthood. Old wounds disguise themselves as preferences. And until someone dares to examine those deeper layers honestly, they will continue repeating the same cycles while believing they are choosing freely. And then there's the seventh truth, perhaps the most unsettling of all. Given the right circumstances, you are capable of everything you judge in others. It's easy to believe you would never betray a friend, never abuse power, never act out of cruelty. But remove stability, add fear, add desperation, add social approval for harmful behavior. Suddenly, the line between them and you begins to blur. Human nature isn't divided into good people and bad people. It's a spectrum of potential, constantly shaped by environment and incentive. Recognizing this doesn't mean you surrender to darkness. It means you stay aware of it, because the person most capable of deceiving you isn't always someone else. Sometimes it's the one staring back at you in the mirror. Now here's the part no one really likes to admit. These truths don't just apply to strangers or to some abstract idea of humanity. They apply to you. They apply to me. Think about the last time you felt overlooked. Was the pain entirely about fairness, or was some of it about wounded pride? Think about the last time you justified a small lie. Did you frame it as protecting someone else when it was really protecting your own image? Think about the quiet satisfaction you feel when someone who once dismissed you suddenly seeks your attention. These aren't signs of evil. They're glimpses into the machinery of being human. But understanding these brutal truths isn't meant to make you cynical. It's meant to make you lucid. When you realize that self-interest drives behavior, you stop taking every disappointment personally. When you understand how flexible morality can be, you become more cautious with power, including your own. When you see how strongly status influences attraction, you stop confusing validation with love. When you recognize projection, you respond to accusations with curiosity instead of immediate defensiveness. When you accept that people often crave comfort over truth, you choose carefully when and how to deliver hard realities. And when you acknowledge your own blind spots, you begin the slow, uncomfortable but transformative work of genuine self-awareness. There's a strange freedom in letting go of illusions. At first, it feels heavy, almost disheartening, as though something beautiful has been stripped away. But what remains is stronger, realistic expectations, boundaries built on clarity rather than fantasy, compassion rooted not in naivete, but in understanding. Once you accept that humans are flawed, self-protective, status-sensitive, comfort-seeking beings, you can love them without demanding perfection. And perhaps even more importantly, you can hold yourself accountable without collapsing under shame. Human nature isn't a fairy tale. It's a complex blend of light and shadow, generosity and calculation, empathy and ego. The brutality doesn't lie in its darkness. It lies in our resistance to seeing it clearly. We want heroes and villains, We want simple explanations, but reality is layered. The same person who comforts you can compete with you. The same friend who supports you can envy you. The same mind that dreams of kindness can rationalize cruelty. Maybe real maturity, real awakening, isn't about pretending these contradictions don't exist. It's about learning to navigate them consciously. It's about recognizing when your ego is speaking louder than your values, noticing when fear disguises itself as logic, choosing integrity not because it feels good in the moment, but because you understand how easily it can slip away. If you sit with these truths long enough, something unexpected happens. Instead of feeling darker, the world becomes clearer. You stop expecting perfection from people, and you start appreciating the rare moments when they choose to rise above their instincts. You stop chasing validation from those driven by status, and you begin building a quieter, steadier confidence within yourself. You stop being shocked by hypocrisy, and you start preparing for it with discernment rather than bitterness. In the end, these brutal truths aren't warnings meant to isolate you from humanity. They're lenses designed to help you see it as it truly is. And when you see clearly, you move differently, you trust more wisely, you love more consciously. You guard your energy without hardening your heart. And perhaps the most powerful shift of all is this. Once you recognize the shadows within human nature, you also recognize the strength it takes to act with integrity despite them. Kindness becomes more meaningful when you know selfishness is easier. Loyalty becomes more powerful when you understand how tempting betrayal can be. Honesty becomes braver when comfort would be safer. So the next time you feel disappointed by someone's self-interest, unsettled by their shifting morals, or frustrated by their projection, pause. Remember that you're not witnessing a glitch in humanity. You're witnessing a feature of it. And then ask yourself the only question that truly matters. Knowing all of this, who will you choose to become?